You're kicking it with G on your favorite station.
The perfect station.
92 KELZ, the only station with new music, new artists, new sound.
Biggity, 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 biggity. Oh my God. We got it together so well in 2019. 2020, we just can't get synced up. What is going on here?
We got jet lag from 2019.
I think so. I'm still trying to catch up to what's going on right now. Guys, we are back in the studio. It's your girl, Hey Charlie.
And your boy, G Casso.
On 92 KELZ, the home of new music, new artists, new sound. We are here with an amazing guest today.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Jacquelyn Aluotto. I am the founder of Real Beauty, Real Woman.
You are the founder of Real Beauty, Real Women, and you are here in Houston, Texas, correct?
Yes.
And she says it so smooth.
I know.
Just Real Beauty, Real Woman. Yeah. And it's a big, huge organization.
I know. You do so much. But before we get into that, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Okay. I am from New Jersey.
Okay. We can definitely hear it in your accent.
Definitely.
Thank you. Some people tell me I lost my accent. I'm like, really?
No, it's there.
No, it's there.
It's all there.
It's definitely there.
I moved here 5 years ago. My organization really started about 20 years ago when we made our first film called Not in My Backyard. And we had spent 7 years going across America to see how homeless, battered women and their children were living in the United States. At the time, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about, child exploitation, human trafficking, racial injustices. So fast forward 20 years, we are. But Real Beauty, Real Women came about because after Not in My Backyard had screened, it had gotten all these awards. But what we had really wanted to do was change legislation.
Yeah.
Because it's a misdemeanor to beat your wife with domestic violence in the United States. And so when we didn't change laws, I kind of sat back and met with our team and thought about, okay, how are we going to make activism sexy and giving back glamorous? And so Real Beauty, Real Women came about, and it was where beauty, glamour, and entertainment meets social responsibility. And then God just blessed us where people thought we were crazy, but we were one of the first.
Yeah.
And so Project Runway had supported our first event, and they had labeled us as socially conscious fashionistas, and it just kind of kicked off to breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
How did we get to the Jacquelyn 2 in my backyard? Like, what led you up to that
Yeah, what
point?
was that? What started that process?
Like, what molded
for
you to become that person?
With Not in My Backyard. So I rarely talk about my personal life and how I grew up, but my mom was a single mother. I grew up poor, and at certain times, like, our childhood was very rough. And along the way, we really had people that really helped us, that when we weren't going to have gifts on Christmas, or our electricity got turned off, or we were getting eviction notices, there was always these incredible people to really help us. And I just really wanted to do the same when I got older, and because I felt so good for us.
Yeah.
And so Not in My Backyard kind of led to that when I got older, that the goal was to show media and really what was happening, because whoever controls the media controls the mind.
Yeah.
And then understanding like advocacy and activism then led to the nonprofit.
So when you came to Texas, because you came straight to Texas from Jersey?
Yes.
Okay, so when you came to Texas, did you already come with the mindset that you were going to launch this organization, or did it all kind of start when you got here? How is that bringing people together?
So there was two reasons why I wanted to come to Texas.
Okay.
One was I wanted my daughter to get to know my father because he lives here. And the second one was because I really wanted to do a documentary on how children were being trafficked through the foster care and welfare system and how it was happening in Texas. There is an advocacy group called Children's Right, Inc. that really had exposed what was happening in the foster care system because it is a system in crisis. They are trying to rebuild it now. But at the time, 5 years ago, we weren't making those strides.
Yeah.
And so the goal was to give those children and those families a voice.
And a lot of people really don't realize, like, how big it actually is. Like, Houston is, like, one of the top 3 cities in the world for sex trafficking. People
Mm-hmm.
always say, not me, not me, not here, and it's right here.
Right. So Houston is the #1 city.
Yeah, and we see you could, but the crazy thing is we see it a lot happening on the streets, especially
Right.
on like the southwest side. Because I know when I worked over on that side, I would always be like something like you would see, people walking on the streets, and you would just get that feeling like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you
Right.
speak up? How does that,
So I think, and that's something that's so hard when you see people and women walking the streets. It's even sometimes, children. It is really hard because you don't know who to call and what to call and what law enforcement agency to call. And that's why it's really important that every law enforcement agency has a human trafficking unit or division in their agency so that they know how to deal with it in their city or county to really combat this. I know that HPD, Precinct 1, the Sheriff's Office, they all have human trafficking units and they're doing things. So we are making progress. We just have to make more.
Yeah.
Are there any particular areas where there are resources for people to actually just go look up and get familiar with certain things, like the process of what to do next if you're into that situation?
Right. I mean, so you could always go to the Polaris Project, but I would say more importantly, like in Houston specifically, if your child's in trouble and you need help, I would call the YMCA. They have incredible advocates. I would call Unbound. They have amazing advocates because what those organizations are really going to do is they also provide support for the parents because what most people don't realize is when your child goes missing or is being trafficked, it is so emotional and you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
And there's no guide to step 1, do this, step 2, do this.
Yeah.
And those organizations are really going to help you. Real Beauty, Real Woman, we work directly with those organizations. And I'm always so impressed that they're always right there with us in court, on the streets, in recovery. If there's a case where a child came over with a visa and they've been trafficked and their court-appointed attorney doesn't understand that they may be deported because they don't understand the deportation laws, they will bring in lawyers that really understand that. It's so important that people know the organizations that are really making a difference so that they can call them right away.
What is I'm happy that we're having this discussion because recently we've been seeing it come up more in the media about sex trafficking, especially in Houston area. However, it almost seems like, okay, the information's out there that it's happening, but the information on how to either prevent it or what to do to help those that are in that situation. Because there's no way that if we consciously are looking at other people that we can say, okay, we don't know that you're going through this. We can see when someone is in, distress or they're in a situation that they feel kind of trapped in or not maybe consciously aware that they're trapped in. Yeah. With Real Beauty, Real Women, what do you all do as far as educating people on either the telltale signs that someone is either in that situation or how to get them out?
So a big important part for what we do is going into schools and churches.
Okay.
Because what most people don't understand is that your children are being groomed and recruited in your schools and churches.
Really?
Right here in Houston. It happens every single day. And so what does that look like and how do you identify that?
Yeah.
And so making the schools understand that this is what trafficking looks like. So if you see this in your school, this is what's happening, and these are the steps that you need to take.
Yeah.
In churches also, because churches always get new members. And so you're not prepared for those things because really who would be prepared for this? But a lot of times it is other children recruiting who are victims of exploitation themselves or come from extreme poverty because they get paid. Like every person that they bring and every child that they bring, they get paid for it. That's one of the big ways that Jeffrey Epstein really got a lot of his children was by paying other children. For every child that they brought, they would get $200. So it's making people aware, and then also having parents in the schools know that we really have to have these honest conversations.
Yeah.
I was just finished.
Yeah.
They are uncomfortable, but in order to protect our children, our families, our communities, like, we have to have them. And the other thing is social media. There's 7 billion people on the planet. When your kid is on social media or has a smartphone, you're opening them up to millions of predators. So a large majority of children are trafficked and groomed through social media, because that's how kids communicate.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I go from this different school, or they just talk freely to strangers on social media, believing that that person's picture and profile is who they are,
Yeah.
when in reality, it isn't.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, so you were saying in the school, in our churches, how do we start that conversation? How do you guys come in and start that conversation?
So it really depends on the school and the district.
Okay.
And I think, because a lot of times at first that conversation is very uncomfortable. And a lot of times for parents too, because parents don't want to think that their kids talk about sex or know about sex. But the thing is that even with cell phones, children they become so much more aware of it,
Yeah.
because pornography is on, and then older kids show older kids. So when we go in and talk to schools, we really just have a specific kind of language depending on what grade it is. And then really a curriculum on how it's going to be presented. But also, I think another huge thing is that parents need to really take these kind of, go to these awareness groups, because as a parent, I need to know everything and know the signs of if my child is really like isolating herself, changed her group of friends, coming home with brand new clothes, new purses, the behavior's completely changed. Those are signs of trafficking. And the hard part with that is those are also kind of signs of being a teenager.
Yeah.
And so it's really that you have to kind of be on top of your children a lot more than you would because of the smartphone devices.
Yeah.
Because once they have them, so many people can really contact them.
How do we kind of, how do I want to word this? Because it's like a small thin line when it comes to with cell phones and when it comes to property, because recently, like, a lot of people got locked up just for taking phones that weren't theirs, or you're not on the plan, this is her phone. So it's kind of considered stolen property. Mm-hmm. So how is a parent supposed to really, I want to say, conduct and filter through the necessary things they're supposed to filter to with a 17-year-old? You know what I mean? That's right there on that line. That's kind of not a kid, but it's kind of not adult either. It's kind of like right there.
Right. I would say this, if your child's still on your line, even though, they're 17 and they're almost, of age, they're still, they're always going to be your child, but they are still considered, a minor. And I would put like a GPS locator on their phone, and I would make sure that to turn off specific tools so that their pictures, all these pictures have locations. Mm-hmm. And so what we don't realize is when we go on Instagram or Facebook, you can get the location of where that person is. And so to also make sure that that's turned off. I would also make sure that my child isn't talking to specific people, or that they are very aware of, hey, this is how children are being groomed and recruited. Because, see, everyone thinks that it can't happen to them, but, predators are masters of manipulation. So grooming really looks like I meet you, or we're in school, you become my best friend.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like, you know everything about me. No one's ever understood me the way you do.
Yeah.
You make me feel great. Oh my God, I didn't even know all these things about myself. thank you so much. And then slowly you're manipulated to change where it's like, well, wait, all these other people don't understand me. And then what happens is they'll slowly start turning you against other people and saying these people don't understand
And
you.
then it'll just be you and them.
Yes.
Okay.
And then also like substance abuse is brought in. Like, let's go to a party. Let's have some drinks.
Definitely.
Let's have some fun. Or you could be slipped a date rape drug. And if that happens, or you think that's your boyfriend, which is also known as a Romeo pimp, and you guys do end up having sex, they'll videotape it, and then they'll blackmail you and say, if you don't do these things, I'm going to tell your parents. I'm going to send this to your pastor. And so with human trafficking, the issue is that there is no one way to be trafficked.
Yeah.
There is so many different ways on how grooming and recruiting and trafficking happens. It's not just blackmail. It's not just social media. There's all different ways. You know, there's also families that traffic, you know, their own children. And so it's just trying to educate people on this complex, you know, issue that has so many layers.
Now, you within the organization, Real Beauty, Real Women, you guys have the accountability program, because you were just speaking about foster children and how there are so many, especially within the South. And it kind of feels like growing up, a lot of us were aware that people that were like foster parents were doing it for the money. You know, they'd have so many children, you know, that would be kind of the thing. But you have a thing, the accountability program. And can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So that program is called Atlas. It's that accountability tracking linking assessment system.
Okay.
And what that was is we had pitched this tech thing three years ago on, we really wanted to start keeping track of how many children in foster care were going missing.
Okay.
And that was because out of one, there was these shelters that children were going missing that were brought, who were runaways or in foster care. And it was because they could specifically walk out. And the pimps and traffickers would be waiting for them because
Really?
they knew that.
Yeah.
And so we started really analyzing and studying the data. And a big part was, well, no one really knows that these kids exist. And so if they fall into the cracks or they're not reported missing or it's not making the news, like, we have issues. And so if something happens once, then that's once. But if things are happening at the same place or the same foster homes over and over again, that's a pattern.
Yeah.
And so how do we track those patterns? But then besides tracking those patterns, if law enforcement agencies don't talk and advocacy organizations don't talk, and if CPS and DFPS didn't talk, then how would we know?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. So Atlas was really created in the accountability program to get everybody together,
Yeah.
to really put together a software and information that we all have to say, if Jane Doe goes missing here, well, Jane Doe has gone missing here 4 times. But this place hasn't ever said that Jane Doe has gone missing, but we keep on picking her up on the streets. That's a problem.
And we keep sending her back to that
Right.
specific place.
Right. And a lot of times these kids, it's easy to say that they lie or they have anger issues because they have been exploited so much.
Yeah.
They've been moved around 9, 10 times. They have been put on medication. They do have anger problems. They really need trauma therapy. They need love. They need counseling, and they need a certain kind of stability. And so that whole Atlas program is really been created for that. So we are hoping and praying that it will be successful in this county, and we'll be able to do it in this county.
I'm definitely going to help you push that because the connections aren't being made for us here generally. Like, who knew? It was so many different resources of people that you can reach out, and it's supposed to be touching heads, and everybody's supposed to be talking. It just doesn't happen.
And it's crazy what isn't public information for us. And like I said, it's kind of like clickbait in the sense that now the hot topic is sex trafficking. It's been an issue.
Right.
It's been something that we have just been like, oh, okay, that's a prostitute, that's a pimp. And we just kind of let it be within in our communities. And that's not just, within the Black community. It's just minorities across the board, especially in, less served communities.
Right.
It's normal to have the pimp on the corner and the drug dealer. But now, because it is the social media thing to do, now people are talking about it. However, we're still uninformed, and it's important for us to partner with organizations like Real Beauty, Real Women, where you guys have the information and are willing to go get the information and give it to the people. So you have an event that's actually coming up on January 31st. It is
Empower, Stand, Serve, and
Impact.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So it's January 31st, and I'm really hoping that January 31st, everybody comes. It is the SC's second annual gala, and it is benefiting Real Beauty, Real Women Foundation, and the Ballroom Bayou has been so amazing to us. They're an incredible venue. Greg Howard and Stephanie Howard, they really have been such great friends and supporters of ours. And we had went to them and said, we want to hold this event. We really need to start raising funds. We've always been so busy that raising funds was like the last thing for us to do.
Yeah.
And so when Essie came to us and said that they had chose our organization to fundraise for, we were like, well, this is amazing. And so we really wanted to bring in also keynote speakers and a global perspective.
Okay.
And so we have the United Nations coming in.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That is big.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's the World's Women's Council. Susan B. Anthony was one of the founders. It's it's the oldest women's organization, a part of the UN. And then we also have Alicia from the Alicia Project, and she was the first child abduction off of MySpace.
Wow.
And when she was 12 years old, so she's spent all of her life since the FBI has rescued her over 20 years ago, to really teaching people on how this can happen in your community, your backyard, in your home, why it happened. No one ever thought it would happen to her.
Yeah.
And then her project really supports internet crimes against children, which is called ICAC. And I also work at Precinct 1. I'm one of their advocates for human trafficking, which is Constable Alan Rosen's office. And they have an ICAC. And so that is really important too, because we want to make sure that we can catch as many predators off of the internet as possible.
Yeah.
But the event will educate people, but then it's also there to inspire people, because we have such amazing success stories.
That's awesome.
And I just really want people to understand that we can break the cycle, of violence, poverty, and exploitation. It's just not what we think. And so when we see a victim, we think that they're going to be like, please help us.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that isn't the case. A lot of times victims really feel like it's their fault, that they asked for it, or, well, it was my boyfriend and he talked me into it, or I shouldn't have lied to my mom and went to that party and, had a few drinks. And so it's very hard a lot of times for even, especially children, to identify themselves with human trafficking. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times they come at you a little hard, but people have to learn how to speak that language, and let them know, like, I would never judge you.
Yeah.
I'm here because I want to see how I can help you and what you really need from me. And so we have, and this is my favorite part, obviously, a performance from Rich Love Society, who is a big part of Real Beauty, Real Women, and she was a survivor. And I'm so proud of her, because, she's overcome so much. Yeah. And to see her, like, walking in her purpose and living in her purpose, and just realizing that she's worth so much is important. And I think that it's hard for people to understand when you are in despair and you do feel so lost. It's hard to communicate that. And so once we can understand that kind of pain, we can help facilitate people's dreams and make them come true. So The gala is going to be education and awareness, but it's also going to be a real celebration of survivors that are thriving.
That's nice. I'm ready for it.
That is so encouraging, and so like I'm already just like, yep, we got to be there. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
It's just you have so much. You can definitely tell that you are connected to this. This is something that isn't just
Definitely genuine feeling.
something you just want to do. This is really a part of who you are and what you believe. Going through this process, being in this organization, starting the organization over these past few years, what has been the biggest takeaway for you during this process, and what is it that you really want to convey to the people?
Okay, well, we started the organization 11 years ago, but starting it here, I guess the biggest takeaway has been, well, I really love how many people are starting to get involved with human trafficking, especially the ones on a genuine level, not the sensational level, to like elevate their platform, but really who are like, oh my God, this is happening to people. And we have to stand up and fight together. That's probably the most exciting part, is to see people standing up and fighting together. And the other part is to see people that we recovered years ago who have turned into leaders in this movement and have really like used their voice and have found their voice. That probably to me is the most exciting. I love watching that and seeing that because I think that everyone should have a voice and everyone should find their voice and feel comfortable in expressing themselves.
That is awesome. That is amazing. So real beauty, real women. How can we follow what you guys are doing? How can we be a part of that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so if people want to purchase tickets, they would go to Essie's second annual on Eventbrite, and they would be able to purchase tickets. If people want to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, they would go to @realbeautyrealwomen.com. If people want to go to our website, it would be breakthecycle.rbrw.org, which is the nonprofit. If people want to just learn about pop culture and activism, then they would just go to rbrw.org because we do just a few different things. And we would just ask everybody if they could support us. We would really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Being that you're a nonprofit, do you guys take in donations?
Yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible.
Okay, perfect.
So,
and they can just go to the website and do the donations through there?
Yes, they can do the donations through there.
Okay, perfect. Then give us the date again. It is January 31st.
31st.
Oh, yeah, it's January 31st. It's from 6:30 to 9:30, and it's at the Bayou Place. And so people are more than welcome to go there. We would love for them to come. And we also have a show that's on Monday nights from 7 to 8 o'clock if people want to check in and see what we're doing.
And how can they tune in?
They can tune in on Facebook, and if they have the Dish Network, they could go to the Dish Network and watch it on there.
Nice. They're on Dish. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank
we
you
really
so
appreciate it. The work that you were doing is incredible.
Amazing.
And it warms my heart to know that there is somebody that's actually out there that cares and is actually being active in the streets. You were just talking about, when we were off air, talking about you were running late for one of your other events because you were there with a survivor, and that is the kind of thing that we love to support. Definitely. People who are truly like passionate and have the heart for the people. So we are so fortunate to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It takes a village. Like, I'm just a small part in that village, but thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Guys, again, January 31st. Do not forget, January 31st.
Get them tickets, people.
Yes. Empower, Stand, Serve, Impact, Essie.
Bet.
It's going to be at Bayou Place from 6 to 9, January 31st. And tell them again how they can get their tickets.
Go to Essie's second annual event on Eventbrite, and the tickets will be right there.
Okay, perfect. Again, guys, you are with your girl, Hey Charlie,
And your boy G Casso.
on the all new 92KLZ.com on Kicking It Radio.
You're kicking it with G on your favorite station.
The perfect station.
92 KELZ, the only station with new music, new artists, new sound.